Hello, this is Pedro. This is the second time I tried to start this thing going. An Instagram live with Claudia Montero Acevedo. We're having problems with connection. We don't know if this is going to work or not. But we are hoping, we are very hopeful that Claudia will be able to join us. I'm pressing a little blue button here. It says go live with your friend Claudia. I press the button. And if it works, Claudia comes online and she and I talk to each other. We hope. And our hope bore fruit. Claudia Montero Acevedo, good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Good. Well, it's 1 o'clock here. Good afternoon.
Okay. It's 8 o'clock in Paris. Yeah. I'm going to lower this camera a little. We did it. You managed to join us. I'm lowering my camera just a little bit so people can see my chin. And here we are. Claudia, we think that you should tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are. My friends know me, but they don't know you. So introduce yourself.
Well, I am Claudia Montero, as you said, Claudia Montero Acevedo. I finished my training in Alexander Technique in 1991. I was the first person in Mexico to become an Alexander Technique teacher. And it's a gift from life because I had no idea about the Alexander Technique. It was a series of different circumstances that got me to London, then started having lessons. I had studied music before, and from very young, from about 13 years old, I was having lots of pains and some sort of things that went wrong, terribly wrong, but I wasn't completely fine. And then I just knew about the Alexander Technique, and that was my starting point. I came back to Mexico in 1991, and it has developed a lot, no? And as like we once talked when we were in Buenos Aires, that what it meant at that moment, the Alexander Technique, well, there are several ideas because also another one of yours, like my main structure was the Alexander Technique, but then it has developed to many things. Going to this definition, like is a means of choice, choosing what you want. It opened that for me, and so with life experience and my work, I work with young musicians. I'm a teacher of the Alexander Technique and the Orquesta Escuela Carlos Chávez, as it's orchestra school, Carlos Chávez. And so experiencing what happens there with young musicians, and it has also taught me a lot and changed the way I teach, and that connects me to the other idea of yours, that yes, it's a starting point, and it takes you anywhere. So well, I don't know, that's a bit too much about myself. I don't know.
Well, no, you. I'm very happy to see you. Claudia and I have known each other for many years. You guys heard that she's been teaching the Alexander Technique since, well, I think it's 30 years. I think this is the year in which you're celebrating 30 years as a practicing teacher, and Claudia has musical training, and she lives in Mexico City, which happens to be the city of my birth. Although I grew up in Brazil, I'm Brazilian, I was born in Mexico City. And about 3 or 4 years ago, she organized a fantastic visit in Mexico for me, where I taught and I traveled within the city, and I played a little concert. And in homage to Mexico and to my friend Claudia, I'm wearing a guayabera. Look, typical Mexican shirt that I bought in Mexico City. So this is for me, a very nice occasion to see a friend and to see a little bit of Mexico, which is my country of birth. And, we also met in London and we met in Buenos Aires. So I think Claudia and I have a lot of good memories together and a lot of pleasure thinking about things we've done together. And I think that's the main thing that we are here for, to have pleasure talking to ourselves about ourselves. And if we can, we'll forget ourselves a little bit and talk about something else, like the Alexander technique. And I think many people watching this thing know a little or a lot about the Alexander technique. But I think it's always useful to try to encapsulate it to the extent that you can, to say a few words that help us get going on a talk about the Alexander technique. And I think you already said a very fine thing. It's a tool for choice, so that you can choose if you're going to sit this way or this way, and if you're going to use this voice like this, or if you're going to use this voice like this, or if you're going to choose to play the cello or to play the piano, or if you're going to choose to get nervous on stage, or if you're going to choose to stay calm on stage. It's a big deal when you have some degree of choice. I'm not saying it's easy. For some things, my choices are easy, others are hard. So, Claudia, how about you tell us a bit more about making choices and about some of the choices that you have been able to make over the years and decades?
Well, that it's very vivid in me, these making choices for the inner benefit, as you said, some choices are easier. Do I sit down? Do I not? I don't sit down, but emotional and mental choices are more difficult. And I think, as I said before, with working with young musicians that sadly, I feel that there's so much mistreatment in education in general, and particularly in performing arts. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, my experience with musicians. So that made me try to work more from inside outside, instead of, as going on also about this sort of definition of or explaining a bit more what the Alexander technique. Mm-hmm. There's the official definition, educational system to psychophysical re-education, and so that's a big thing. But in very general terms, it's to explain it, I sometimes divide this physical part is the reestablishing a healthy use of the spine, integrating the movement with freedom, and but mainly is the spine as the basis of the function of the physical part, But then this mental, the psycho, it's more complex, and so you can work with some people come because they want to improve their posture, and it's fine. You can then work more towards that. But I feel, and I'm experienced with students, that it comes from how you feel, if you're joyful or if you're sad or if you're worried. So for myself, and I try to do it with other people, I can choose. These past 10, 11 years, I had experienced difficult situations, I don't know, it just happened 3 very strong events in my life. And it was a turning point, a deeper change, that I realized then that I have these we're culturally in Mexico, I think, and I think Latin countries, Latin American, we have the trauma, this experience of and sort of blackmail, you did this to me, and I'm such a good person. And
Mm-hmm.
so I grew up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And when this first event happened, I saw myself, you know, I could jump into that, or I could laugh. I could, I mean, jumping into that drama thing, you know, wouldn't change the situation and wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going to help. So when I really went through a very bad phase, you know, that I really wanted to stop living, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
so then I would think, what doesn't happen to me, and I just die. I know I'm not able to take away my life, but
Mm-hmm.
then I would just stop, laugh, and say, okay, uh, sorry, something happened with the phone. I just said, you know, you wake up, you get up, prepare breakfast, clean the dog's poos, and then you die.
All right, that's good. That's good. All right, that's a good joke. Thank you.
So I sorry, I something happened. So yes, that was sort of it just happened, but then I made it conscious, and I've started to do it like that. Um, for me in other situations, and try to share this experience, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
means. And then in retrospective, I realized it's inhibition, you know. It's one of the principles of the Alexander technique, but just stop and choosing. That's making a stop your or prevent your habitual reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gives you choices to. I can consciously choose it to be in that drama phase, and sometimes I can, and it
Mm-hmm.
might be, you know, it's fun as well to watch it, but it's different. So and for example, now with the pandemic, with the confinement, also we can choose to. I think my experience with the pandemic hasn't been terrible. In fact, I've learned a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I've done things that I hadn't done. So I don't know whether it's your
Yeah.
turn to.
Yeah, it's my turn to say thank you very much for sharing so many interesting things with us, and so many, let's say, dimensions, not only about yourself, but about the art of choosing, and the things that are relatively easy for us to choose, and the things that can be much harder for us to choose. And you've had some tough times, and you chose to work through them. And then comes the pandemic, and that's like a hard time for everybody. And you chose to live through it in a certain way, and you learned a lot, and you had a good time. And if I summarize it, I would say choosing is a principle, is a life principle. And sometimes you can see Instagram videos where the parents of a young baby, a few months old, they put two different objects in front of the baby, and the baby makes a choice between the blue one or the red one, or something like this. Or a little kid who chooses how she's going to get dressed and says, today it's going to be the red skirt and the striped shirt, you know. So little kids can learn to choose, and we can do that consciously because our parents are helping us, or because we take the initiative, or we can do it more intuitively, where without necessarily understanding it intellectually, we make a choice. So we see babies and little kids doing that, and we know that it is possible to train yourself to make choices and to be comfortable making choices, or to be a bit more comfortable making choices than before. And that's already improvement, and it's really, really helpful. So I think there's a principle called making choices, and then there's the application of that principle, which in some settings it's going to be easy. For instance, today I chose to wear my guayabera, and that was a very easy choice. The shirt was right there. It's clean and ironed. I just had to put it on. It was very easy. That was an easy choice. And then comes a harder choice, and then there's a kind of a layer of difficulties or something like this. And in some difficult settings, it becomes ever harder to make quick and health-giving choices. I would like to mention the famous book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
In fact, I would say it's two books. One is about his experiences in the concentration camps. He was Jewish, and he survived. And he talks about those experiences, and he says, even in the worst possible settings, you have some degree of choice. You can make choices. I think it's a very big deal when a survivor from the concentration camps talks us through the difficulty and says, ultimately, you have some degree of choice. And then he writes a kind of a second book within the same book, which is about the method that he developed, the psychotherapeutic method that he developed, which is about finding a kind of a direction in your life, finding a purpose, and just dedicating yourself to a worthy purpose, because then you have a direction and a goal, and that gives meaning to your existence. And I'm going to tease my friend Claudia. Sometimes I call her also mi hermana, because, you know, we're kind of, we've known each other and we get along. So I'm going to tease mi hermana. So, you know, you have a really, 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 really difficult situation in your life, and then you say, I'm going to clean the dog's poop, and then I can die, you know? And you're making the choice to tell a kind of a joke in a moment where you're feeling very troubled, and the fact that you can tell yourself a joke, I think it's a little bit what Viktor Frankl is talking about, that you can choose between drama and humor. You acknowledge the difficulty of the situation, and you say, in fact, to some degree, I know how to back off, and in fact, it's better for me, because if I don't, I'm going to be in that dog poop, but I want to be, well, let me clean that, you know, and now I can make coffee and my day starts.
Yes, sorry, something happened to my phone and I just lost a bit of sorry, technology, as we said. It's not being cheeky with us today, because I couldn't hear part of what you said, but I heard you were making a joke, but then I lost. Sorry.
It's okay. I would like to say something, because, you know, with the pandemic and whatnot, we all have been doing a lot of work online. Sometimes it's Zoom or Skype or Instagram Live. And sometimes things get cut or interrupted. And I consider that the interruptions and the unreliability of technology are a plus, because we have to learn how to stay calm in this kind of stressful situation where you're not sure what the other person said. You didn't hear it, or you got cut off, and in that moment you make a choice. You say, I don't have to worry about it. I'll just complete what, you know, I only heard 40%, and I'll provide the 60% that I didn't hear him say. I'll have my own thoughts and feelings. So I consider it a plus to deal with the interruptions of technology. I think it's actually a very good learning experience.
Yes, it takes you more into the unknown, unexpected, and we have to deal with it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, just now couldn't get in, and so.
Yeah. One of our listeners, somebody I know, posted a little note. Maybe you guys can see it, and she says her mother was a Holocaust survivor, and the listener says, my mother had to make choices, and those choices saved her. So it's as if we're having a little confirmation from one of our friends who are listening, that what Viktor Frankl says, that even in the worst possible human circumstances, you have a degree of choice, that probably not only can you make choices, but you must make choices if you will survive. So thanks, Janet, for having put that little note there. It's very useful. I think it can be difficult to believe that we can really make choices. And every confirmation that we get that it's possible, and that people became able to make choices in very difficult circumstances, I think it's helpful. It confirms the principle that you can make choices.
Yes, it's wonderful to read that, and it gives hope. Like if in those terrible conditions, which were much worse, then you can choose. It's hopeful. And what I like what you said before, like children can choose, even pets to some extent make choices, you know, and
Yeah.
I had pets, and then my dogs chose what they wanted to eat or not, you know. But then probably it would be something worth considering or seeing how we can. I don't know if this sounds too pretentious, but one of my motivations to teach is to contribute to other people's well-being. Mm-hmm. And so from this perspective, I would like to do things to make more accessible to people this capacity to choose. And that's what I try with especially at the orchestra, you know, with these young musicians, or at least sometimes, like with them, you know, with a teacher, there's sometimes you cannot choose to tell him he's horrible or she's horrible. You know? But like if you have a space within you that, for example, in that case, I tell them that we're all human beings, all the same. You know, it happens that the teachers, we think that he knows more about this instrument than you do, you know, but we are all the same. We're humans with the same human needs. So if you consider that, then when you're in front of someone when you cannot make a big choice, I feel that it's a space within you that, you know, it doesn't makes you react the same way, you know, even inside, at least inside, that you don't get so frightened or worried. So there's a space. I don't know if it's being clear, but I wish we could do something to help to make more accessible this capacity of choosing. It's not easy, and I think because of the mental and emotional habits, but with practice, and I find for me that humor, you know, laughing at me, it's a starting point. Yeah. It might not be for everybody, but...
All right, so you're saying a lot of interesting things, and some part of me wants to make a list of all the interesting things that you said and offer a reply one by one, but that would take the whole all night. So instead I make a choice among all the things that you said. I say I'm not going to address things number 1, 5, and 11 in my list. I'll just address things number 2 and 3 or something like this. So in talking to you, I make choices, and I say, Claudia, my friend, she's saying so many interesting things, but I'll just have to choose to relax and let her say those things. And then I say, from everything that you said, I suddenly put myself in the skin of a young student, a sensitive, talented young student who is in a difficult situation because he or she has a very tough, mean, incompetent teacher. And we've all had to deal with difficult teachers. So we just we choose that situation, teacher and student, and there's a talented, young, sensitive student, and the teacher is just an old-style, mean person who has a lot of problems that he or she dumps on the students, and it's horrible. And Claudia and I, we are very sensitive, so we don't like to see young people being abused by the adults and the teachers, and we wish that there were good ways for us to help the young people somehow deal with it. But I think, Claudia, you're saying a very interesting thing. You said, in a situation that's very uncomfortable, You can't always get out of the situation. You have to deal with the situation. And you can't always deal with the thing that's causing the stress, the mean teacher or the incompetent teacher, but you can deal with what's happening inside of you, where to some degree you can choose to relax, or to say, I'll deal with this, I have to accept this for now. I'll evacuate these experiences later with my friends. I'll tell some jokes. I'll say some really rude things about this teacher, just not in front of the teacher. And later tonight, and the boy starts thinking of the horrible, funny, rude, politically incorrect joke that the boy is going to tell his buddies in the cafeteria after the rehearsal. And because he has a creative response to the situation where he can evacuate with some jokes about the teacher, well, that's going to be helpful. It's one way of dealing with a situation where you can't change the situation, but you can change how you react to the situation to some degree.
Yes, that's very important. Because I think another habit that we learn through imitation is this, that people do me things, like I said differently before, but it's the same. Like the exterior is bombarding me or doing things to me, the traffic, the teacher, the whatever, everything. It's like it was like everything was being on purpose to do something wrong to you.
Yeah, that's quite right.
And even with people, how we interact, what you do is what you do, but how I take it is how it's my responsibility. It's mine. That's mine. So that's another very important fact to consider if we want to experience. And probably you say one person might say, I like and I want to remain being in the drama. Okay, but then to have a choice, just thinking that, I think can be another starting point. That I don't think we're that important that people is thinking I'm going to do that to that person, But we do the best we can, I think. And
you described a situation where there's a lot of things happening at work, in the environment and whatnot, and you have the feeling that everybody is doing something to you and everybody's against you. And I immediately imagine that I'm having a hard time at home and with my cello and with my students and with the tax authorities, and then I go out for a walk and starts raining, and the rain was out to get me. That rain was so mean. The rain said, I'm going to wait until Pedro shows up, and then I'm going to pour right on his head because I want to, and he deserves it and he needs it. And Pedro, I'm going to rain on your head. Well, it's easy to believe that everybody and everything is conspiring against you, including the rain. Yeah.
Yes, that's because you're very important, Pedro. That's what rain.
That's right.
It doesn't happen to me because I'm not that important. Yes, I know. With the pandemic, I have a roomie, and it's like I see, how like everything is wrong. It was very interesting, to share with this person that so different, at the beginning I thought it wasn't affecting me, but then in retrospective, you say yes.
Yep.
I realized I was knitting. I hadn't knit for 20 years or something. I just was knitting. So, well, I did something funny, creative, but obviously I started teaching. I had taught a bit before on Zoom and online, but there was a stop with the orchestra, and then I started, but there was a gap, and then I was knitting and playing. How do you say? Well, playing games, you know, with this person I shared a flat with, and like Memoria, then like a children's game. And I thought, well, yes, it was affecting me, obviously. I was like, this time, chunks of time that I was teaching, so I did things like that. But it was interesting to see. I wasn't conscious at that moment, but then my unconscious choices went funny for me, you know. But yes, it seemed to me sometimes when I heard this man talking that it was something that was being done to him, you know, that we had confined, and I felt, well, I love my place. I like my house. I love my pajamas, if you remember.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
I love my house. I love, so it's...
Claudia, yeah, Claudia is referring to a YouTube clip of a little girl who is, I don't know how old she is, could be 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, but a little girl who is doing a performance to the camera, as it were, where she's saying, I love my house, and I love my bed, and I love my parents, and I love my pajamas, I love my hair, I love my pajamas. So a little girl celebrating all of the things that she loves, and if you watch that, it's an expression of self-love. She says, I love myself, and I love life. And it's a very touching thing. And Claudia and I watched that together when I was in Mexico 4 or 5 years ago. So we now have a kind of an inner joke between, you know, just an inside joke, which is I love my pajamas, which is just an abbreviation for life can be difficult, but I love it. Mexico can be difficult, but I love it. Teaching the Alexandria technique can be difficult, but I love it. Thinking about how mean teachers do terrible things to tender young students is difficult, but I love teaching. And you acknowledge that the situation may be quite imperfect, but you also acknowledge your love, and you say, I just love this thing that I do, and I love knitting during the confinement, and I love playing games of memory during the confinement. And then if you stretch it a little bit, you say, I love the confinement, I love the pandemic, because right here, right now, I'm somehow managing to put my heart into a creative pursuit, which is much better than putting my heart into a destructive pursuit. So it's good. I almost am saying, can you go grab one of those things that you knitted and show it to us? You know, but I wouldn't want to put you on the spot. But if it happens to be right there, you know, you just show, you know, like, yes, I knitted this, or, you know, something like this.
I don't. It's very far. But I did lots of scarves to give to my friends.
That's good.
So they were long and thin because that was the yarn I had, so it had to last for the friends I had decided I was giving them. So it's like long, like, yes, stripes.
Yeah, that's good.
Like you cannot really call them scarves even, because they're just like knitted strips. You know,
knitted strips, yeah. Things, you know, they're called things.
Very nice things. I did. You know?
That's good. Beautiful things, yeah.
Yeah.
So can you let me backtrack a little bit to one of the first things that you said, because I am at the risk of misquoting you and saying not in the way you said it, but you can always correct me and tell me that that's not what you said. But you said something about in our culture, in our Latin American culture, we tend to be quite addicted to drama. Yes, you know, we and I wanted to know if you can tell all of us a bit more about the Latin American culture of drama. What you do you mean by that? There's no drama in Latin. I'm from Brazil. There's no drama in Brazil. So would you tell us a bit more about Latin America drama culture?
Well, from my experience, I think, and I'm sorry to say that, but I think it's, well, there are different kinds of drama. Latin America Brazilian drama or Argentinian drama, and then
Yeah.
within those dramas, there's also like male and female drama, I think.
Oh, all right.
I well, that's my, I say it's my experience. And but I have, like, being a woman, more having identified or have worked more to identify the female drama in Mexico. So it's very quoted, like I've reduced it.
That's good.
And so it's like what I was saying a bit, like, how do you do that to me? Like mothers being, and it's like a double game, like on one hand, the main role, the image of Mexican mother is like, I am very sumisa, like, I put on with everything. Forgive my Spanglish. I put on with everything. But on the other hand, when the son, daughter does something, why do you do that to me?
Right.
So I'm going to say something. I hope my family is not listening. But for example, when I got divorced, my mother said to me, what people are going to say about me? My two sons are divorced now. Because there's plenty of attention. I don't mind that my life had sort of ended or changed abruptly. It was like, what are they going to think about me? And that I was a bad mother because I divorced. That kind of thing that like. So they sort of expect you to pay with like unconditional love and fidelity and not hurting them on one hand, and on the other hand, they put up with things that shouldn't. That I think we shouldn't put, like, because of self-respect. And also in education, if you're raising a child, you have to have loving boundaries, that this is because it will be easier for us to live together. And because when you go out in the world, then there are rules. There are some explicit, some implicit, but you have to be in harmony with you and with the people around you and the environment. Then there are things that one can do and cannot not do. So I don't know if that answers your question about the drama.
Well, I'll put it this way: the question is so big that to answer it completely is not really possible. But you chose an entry point, and you talked about, in particular, the way society and family life affect women in particular, and the particular kind of I'm trying to find a word. It's not coming to me, so I'll use some other word. But the contradictions and hostilities of societal and family life, and how they affect women, and how the women themselves then have to make some sort of choice. Am I going to contribute to the drama, or am I going to put a little distance between me and the drama? And talk about boundaries. Boundaries is a kind of a distance. And I know that's a big subject, and it's not easy to find boundaries. And when you come from I would like to mention another book. I talked about Viktor Frankl, and I would like to talk about Edward T. Hall, anthropologist, American. His work life was roughly from 1930 to 1980 or something like this. He wrote interesting books about time and space, the dance of time, and he wrote a book called Beyond Culture. And he talks about how our culture, I come from Brazil, so I grew up in a certain Brazilian culture, or the French culture, or the subculture of the Hispanics in the United States. So he talks about culture, and he says culture is your mind, and your mind's culture. And you cannot really separate it. And he says all sorts of interesting things. And then he talks about separation anxiety, which is a big theme. I remember years ago, I was in another Congress in Lugano. It was about 8 years ago. And I was waiting to take the cable car up the hill to go to my hotel. And in the plaza in front of the cable car, there was a little boy with a little smartphone playing a video game, or just a video game. And he's distracted, he's playing the video game. He looks up and his mother is not anywhere to be seen. His mother seems to have disappeared. And he let out an incredible yell, very animal, full of fear, because he was afraid he was going to die, because his mother was not there anymore to protect and nourish him. So that shout that was so incredible to hear was demonstrating the importance of separation anxiety. You being separated from your mother, and it's very, very scary. Yes. And I think separation anxiety is a big theme all around. I believe that some people have separation anxiety from the words that they say, so they try to keep the words in, because after the word goes out of your mouth and your brain, you can't control it anymore. So you have separation anxiety from your thoughts and your words, and you can't separate with them, so you can't say anything, or something like this. I travel, I go to places, and I go to Mexico, and after 2 wonderful weeks there, I'm preparing to go back home, and I'll have separation anxiety from Mexico, from the connections and the beauty of the place and everything that I learned there, the feeling that maybe I'll never see Mexico again. So I'll have separation anxiety when I'm about to go back home, or something like this. So I think separation anxiety is a really big deal. And Edward T. Hall, in his book Beyond Culture, talking about a lot of interesting things, he talks about cultural habits and how getting rid of them, you will get separation anxiety. You will have the feeling that everything's being taken away from you, everything that you believe in, all your thoughts and your emotions. If you are being invited to confront the problematic parts of your own culture, you risk having separation anxiety. And in that moment you say, I think I'll stay with the drama, because separating myself from the drama is quite anxiety producing. And I think it's because of separation anxiety you can be nervous about being separated from a habit, or something like this. So yes. Yeah, drama can be a kind of a drug and addictive, and then you have to find the boundary, which is a separation, and I think it's not easy.
No, yes, it's you can feel you're left in the void. Why do I do if I don't do this?
Uh-huh.
And I want to know, if you want to tell me,
how
your experience probably male drama in Brazil, or
okay, male drama in Brazil. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, I'll start with a joke. That's partly one of the themes for our encounter tonight. Is that can we solve our problems with humor? And we can solve some problems just with jokes, and we can make some problems easier to solve with jokes. And some problems are not jokes, so they're kind of limits. But generally speaking, the jokes can be very, very helpful. So I'll start by talking, you want to know about male drama in Brazil, and I'll start with a joke. Yeah. We have no male drama in Brazil.
Of course not.
We are all... No, what are you talking about? We're kind of easygoing, friendly people. We walk barefoot outside, and you say, "Hi, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing?" Yeah, and that's a joke because I'll tell you a very terrible thing. The murder rate in Brazil is higher than in Mexico per population. Now, we know that parts of Mexico are very violent and have been for a long time, and the numbers are absolutely terrifying. But the amazing thing is that the murder rate is higher in Brazil per population. And that shows that Brazil is a violent country with a violent culture, with a macho culture. Until some years ago, there was something like 700 murders per year of husbands who were jealous of their wives, and generally speaking, they walked away free because the murder was justified in the eyes of machistas, of the law in Brazil. So I would say that from a cultural point of view and from a statistic point of view, Brazil is a male violent country and has long been. The history of Brazil is very, very, very dark. The United States imported 400,000 slaves from Africa. Brazil imported 4 million slaves from Africa. So generally speaking, the culture and the thinking and the minds of the Brazilian male traditionally are infused with the potential for violence, I think. Some of my Brazilian friends may disagree, but that's part of it. So I'm just talking from a societal point of view. From a more personal point of view, I will now make one of those really bland statements, a kind of a generalization. I think for all of us, and I think this applies for men and women in every country, to find a kind of a balance between creating boundaries and accepting things, it's extremely difficult. And that means that you can grow up in Brazil in a toxic family or something like this, and it may be very difficult for you to have a clear boundary where you say, no, I don't accept that. No, that is not going to work. No, you can't do that. So I think for men in Brazil, for women in Brazil, for women in Mexico, and for men in Mexico, to find the balance of boundary and acceptance is quite an art, and I think it's quite difficult. So in Brazil, male drama is, like everywhere else, tied in with dysfunction of boundaries, where you find it difficult to give expression to your strong emotions, and you find it difficult not to give expression to your strong emotions. So that was a completely useless general statement that said nothing of interest, Pedro, and I'm getting really mad at myself for having talked such complete nonsense about Brazil. And that means that I'm concluding my little paragraph about male drama in Brazil with a little play act drama, which is a kind of a solution to some of our problems. Thank you very much. Now, Claudia, it's your turn to save me from embarrassment by saying something intelligent, okay?
Oh gosh, that you put me on the spot. What? To say something intelligent on demand is very difficult.
Yeah, it's about drama. About say something intelligent about drama already.
Right. And then I'm scared now, because I saw you angry, and I'm going to shock into the state of shock. Well, no, hearing you, listening to you, it's well, at the end, yes, there might be little cultural differences and family, and then we are a conjunction of many factors, different. But at the end, yes, I go back to what I said before. We are all human beings with human needs, and expression and communication. It's probably also at the center of all these habits, mental and emotional habits, because listening to you, I realized that again, some people might get angry with me, as you said, with your Brazilian friends, that now, I mean, there are things still happening, and with women, and there's a lot of murder. But I feel, from my perspective, sometimes like making visible this and defending the rights of women, it's very important, and don't take me wrong, but that we lose, from my experience again, the sense of the other part, of the male part, that we has to be put in the equation of change, the communication. And there's it's difficult for men because, as you, in one of the phrases you said, that express you. So then men can't express their feeling, or it's more difficult, and then you bottle them up until you explode. And so it's about changing communication. It's about, I think, change, and make me think. About Alexander. He thought that with education and changing, with the Alexander technique, but there could be a change in humanity. I like it. I think it's like sweet. I find it naive in a way, but it gives me, or us, as far as I can see, and knowing, that this hope that for change, for at the end, probably it's the same, change habits, change education, change communication, choosing how you communicate, choosing how you receive what the other people is telling you.
That's quite right.
Now you have to rescue me.
That's good. We will create a mutual rescue society. That's what friendship really is. It's a mutually rescueful relationship. That's good. Thanks, Claudia. You just gave me an insight. I enjoy that. I guess I'll say wrap it up, and I'll say something with the things that I observe in France, in America, when I travel. In Scotland, I've been going to Scotland. I've seen it many times. In my estimation, I believe that I see more and more parents being thoughtful and tender with their young children, much more so than when I was growing up. I see young parents who are kind of playful and who not only pay attention to their children, but also let them play by themselves, instead of being always, don't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. You go play, go play. So by watching parents with young children, in my experience, in Brazil, in America, in France, in Scotland, in other places, it gives me tremendous joy when I see a little kid being well taken care of, being loved, being supported, being stimulated by parents who have a sense of humor and creativity, and who let the children express themselves, and who are also physical, who hug the children, and who let the children run away, and they are going to be right there when the child comes back. So when I see that, which I believe happens more now than when I was growing up, then I'm hopeful that change is not only possible, change is happening. And those children, being so well taken care of by their parents, will grow up to be loving parents and will propagate the healing effect of listening, paying attention, having a little less drama, but also allowing the child to be in drama if the child needs to be in drama. So ultimately, when I watch parents and children, I'm optimistic.
Yes, it's true. There's a change, luckily, yes.
Luckily,
and what you said is very important as well, to allow yourself, not just children, but oneself, to be in the drama when necessary. It's important as well. Always, I'm going to smile, because as you said before as well, there are things that are more difficult, and even with those that example I gave, it's that doesn't mean I was denying, I wasn't crying, I wasn't worried, I was scared, I was hurt, it was just like to see it differently. It helped me to move, to keep moving, to different, and it's very important, I think, so that it's not misinterpreted, that I think you have to always be smiling when it would be silly, it would be crazy, it would be unsafe, so it's all it's not, it's a way of knowing oneself and acknowledging our needs. And then if one is more balanced, more in equilibrium, then you can be better with other people, with your surroundings. And I think
that's our hope.
Let's hope. Yes.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for bringing such an important subject to the discussion. Thanks for telling big and important things about yourself to your friends. Very helpful. I really appreciate it. And thanks to those of you who hang around and watch me make a fool of myself and Claudia be a wise woman who knows a lot about life. So I think she saved the event. Thank you, Claudia, very much.
Thank you. No, it's always I'm very thankful for you, and even the pandemic. You know that we've managed to do these things. You know, like to share more your groups you've made and knowing people from other parts of the world, and it's open possibility. It made it more accessible. You know, but really, really thank you for inviting me or for having this chat and
it's been great.
Being full together, making ours.
And a couple of our listeners put in little comments saying thank you. So let me also say thank you to Janet and Catherine for listening and putting in a good word. It's really very sweet of you, Janet and Catherine. And you know, Claudia, it means that we have a fan club. It's kind of good. Yeah.
Okay.
I consider it. Well, I think it shows in your half of the screen or something like that.
Because you're talking one. Well, thank you for listening. The people and Pedro's friends and new friends.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with this finger here, I'm going to go towards the little cross there that will bring this live to an end. Don't take it personally, like the way I took the rain personally when it decided to fall on top of my head. That was just a story, but I enjoyed telling it. So right now, I'm going to end the discussion. Please don't take it personally.
Yes, okay. I won't make a drama. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Doesn't want to finish.
Yeah, I'm trying to press the button. The button says, Pedro, what are you doing? Are you crazy, Pedro? You crazy Brazilian male creating a drama.
Claudia is going to make a drama.
That's right. Are you sure that you want to end your live video, Pedro? Well, I'm going to press the red button, and now.